This series of lunchtime conversations intends to capture insights from some of society's thought leaders, given the unprecedented times we are living in. The 3rd of June and the headlines today reflect a troubled world, the winners from yesteryear seemingly clinging to what made them great. I hope that we can use this hiatus caused by the pandemic to create a new way. Part of my role at Warwick University is to make sure our programmes remain relevant and continue to serve the needs of society. To do this, it's important to be part of the research and industry community. The people I'm speaking to in this series form my professional network, and I rely on them to inform and help steer our educational offerings. We've seen seismic shifts in all areas of life. The extraordinarily pervasive nature of COVID-19 will have lasting effects. To discuss this, my lunchtime guests today are Helen Routledge, the Chief Exec from Totem Learning Limited, and Claire Green, who's the Creative and Digital Communities Manager here at the University of Warwick. Welcome to lunch.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, wonderful to be here.
Helen, can I ask you a bit about Totem Learning? Can you tell me what its mission is, sort of main clients and the sort of services and products that you might deliver or be part of with organisations?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So we're a digital learning company based in Coventry, and we focus on serious games and augmented reality, virtual reality, and really bringing learning to life. And our mission is to make learning as enjoyable and as sticky as possible, and help people with their everyday challenges at work. So we work in 3 main sectors. So we work with corporates. So our clients in that space might be organisations like Shell or Deloitte, PwC. So big organisations. We work in rail. So looking at how we can do things like augmented maintenance. With augmented reality.
What's augmented maintenance? Pardon for interrupting. But
so that's augmented reality is all about bringing data to you at your point of need. So if you think, so at home, for example, you might be fixing something and you go to YouTube to find out what that is, or you look at a manual and find out. Now what we can do with augmented reality is take that information, and you can hold up your phone and you can see a picture of it on your screen. We can apply more information to it. So it says, turn this screw with this screwdriver, and walk you through step by step. So you can do that at home maintenance, or you can scale that right up for big engineering projects. Because there's essentially a digital manual.
Yeah, I don't want to go off at a tangent at the beginning, but that is fascinating. So you must have to learn a lot about the actual engineering requirements in the first place. You must have to learn that to be able to create the augmented reality maintenance to support it.
Yes, well, we work really closely with subject matter experts, regardless of which industry we're working in. And luckily, that engineering projects typically have great models and processes anyway. So we don't have to become experts in the actual process, because a lot of that material is already there. But in order to make sure it feels very realistic and lifelike, we do need to have a really good understanding. So when we created a welding project a few years ago. So when we were doing that welding project, we actually sent the programmers to learn how to weld, and the artists, so that they could really create something that was really realistic.
Oh golly.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, so I interrupted. So there was corporate, and there was the kind of rail, and then the third one?
Third one is healthcare. So we're doing a lot of work at the moment with the NHS, looking at, with the world we're living in at the moment, there is a real need to move into the digital space. So looking at how we can use digital to help patients and staff and the whole system work more smoothly.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you. So a busy, nice multi-sector approach, which is lovely. Yeah. So Claire, how do you know Claire? And Claire, how did you meet Helen? What's the relationship there?
So I'd been following Helen, I think, for a while on LinkedIn, because I'm only relatively new to the area, to Coventry and Warwickshire, moved about 2 years ago. So I kind of started following lots of different people in the area, but it was really when I became a Women in Games ambassador. So I'm kind of a local representation of the Women in Games kind of movement here in Leamington, and Helen was one of our first speakers. So and that's when we got to meet in real life. So yeah, hugely inspiring kind of talk around more of the kind of personal sort of journey that Helen had got to get to CEO at Totem, which was really inspiring. And then more recently, I know that you're part of the Scale Up programme, and we've been helping to support that through the initiative that I'm running. So yes,
what's that? What's the initiative that you're running?
So the initiative is a creative and digital communities initiative. So Warwick have realised that we are actually part of one of the largest kind of creative clusters outside of London, and have kind of then dedicated time and resource and effort to connect with that community more meaningfully. So I was kind of brought in alongside a director, Vicky Jepson, and she and I are kind of from the creative industries backgrounds ourselves. So my background, I used to run kind of a massive games festival, hackathons, and ran a creative industries network outside of a university in Cambridge. Yeah.
Dynamic. Thank you. Thank you. So Helen, you know, that's also dynamic and exciting and creative and forward looking and thinking. And then the pandemic happens.
Yeah.
And how did that impact upon appetite for this, about the way that you think your current business and your future business might respond?
Yeah. For us, it was very sector specific. So we do serve the airline industry, hospitality, and the oil and gas industry, and understandably, those industries were struggling and still are struggling probably the most. So we did see declines in those areas, but at the same time, what we saw is now, I suppose, more of a driving force behind the need to go digital. So that there was, I think, you know, there's obviously the fans, but then there's a lot of people who are resisting digital and they really like that face-to-face, and a lot of training has to be done face-to-face, which has a lot of cost associated to it. And so we've seen a big, I suppose, movement or a shift from companies who now can't do any of that training, and then they can't train their staff because they were reliant on face-to-face, and now move into the digital space. And so we've done a lot of work helping organizations transition. So understanding, you know, what some of these organizations haven't done e-learning before. So, you know, what is e-learning? How do you use it? How do you avoid death by PowerPoint?
Yeah.
That's the work you could do at this point in time, is just move everything online and just leave people to it. You know, there's a real need to keep engagement up. We're all isolated at home, so we can't forget that human interaction is so essential. So yes, we've done a lot of kind of consultation, helping people that way. But also we've been very flexible in terms of how our business has responded in terms of our commercial model. So we understand the finances are really tight out there. You know, business has slowed down for everybody across the board. And so we've been, you know, flexible with our commercial terms, looking at longer term partnerships, and really just thinking about how we can create those win-wins still in the challenging times we're in.
Yeah, because I mean, I notice. I mean, at the university, we've got a structure. We have a whole infrastructure there to support the delivery of learning experiences, and you know that commercial challenge, the financial challenge, you know, enabling and supporting learning hasn't changed. You know, that's what we're about, but maybe the way that we're going to do it, the way that we're going to offer it, the way we're going to engage, is going to go a radical shift. Now, you know, I know it's difficult, because if your organizational infrastructure is established for costing and pricing and understanding quality and engagement based on a classroom-based fixed wall model of contact hours.
Yeah.
It's very challenging to have them full upheaval and to say, well, actually, the learning is going to be the same, the outcomes, or maybe better.
Yes.
But the way that we commercially make it viable, because maybe we notice going online, it's not a case of just taking what you do and just putting it out there. It requires significant investment and development to make it good. How do you how we should go about costing and understanding how that commercial structure that can be better support the development that needs to be done. It's really, really challenging. So I guess from your position, you have got more direct insights into industry directly to see how you can be flexible and adaptable. Is that how do you, I'm asking, trying to find out, how do you span that? How do you navigate that space?
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, and we try to be as flexible as we possibly can. So typically with each engagement, it's slightly different. But it's a mind shift rather than time in a seat, face time. It's more driven by outcomes. So we're quite lucky that a lot of our work and the approach of our work hasn't changed, because we've been looking at things like creating systems that you can replay and that people want to keep coming back to anyway. So for years we've been having conversation about e-learning is priced on a per screen basis and a per hour module. So if you create an hour of e-learning module, then there's a price to it, and you've got different levels, and it's very fixed and it's very easy to understand. Whereas in a serious game or an interactive piece of learning, you don't have those same guidelines or restrictions as such. So it's more about let's take those restrictions away and allow people to access that information as much or as little as they need to achieve where they need to go. And
is there also a trial and error element to it, that people could try and fail and come back to it? So, because I think that's interesting, when you're on a training course, you might not get everything immediately, but you need it to sink in, you need to reflect on it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in breaking content up, rather than sitting for maybe 2 or 3 hours and listening to someone talk. It's more let's break it down into the foundation principles. Let's get those. Let's maybe build in some exercises as well as the foundational knowledge, and let's really master those, and then build up and layer up from there. And I'm a big believer that we need to move away from a big download of information and then going and kind of trying to cope on your own after that and take it all in, to that more bite-sized and iterative form of learning.
And that's the beauty of games, isn't it? They build. There's suspense and there's a sense of achievement when you've hit that level that you've been on for such a long time. So there's that sense of achievement isn't necessarily an assessment or a tick box but it could be, you get more stars, or you get more, weapons, or assets that you've been looking and working for. So I think that fun and that play is really important, isn't it? In the digital world of learning.
Because it's much easier to disengage online if it's not got your interest. At the same time, learning how to build that engagement in, and that openness and that sharing, and and a kind of a general point, or a general outlook on, I guess maybe to you, Claire, to the digital and creative industries. I guess I wonder how because people have taken up new creative things online and offline. And they found new ways of filling their days up, because we've all been in lockdown. Do you think, what sort of impact do you think that will have? We've got, will it be positive? Will it be negative? Taking into consideration that many festivals and big other creative, where there's more density of people, they have been cancelled. And this more kind of individual creative outlet seems to have grown. What do you think of that? Like, how does that?
Well, I think it's great that creativity, like if you give people more time and space, then their creativity and that energy is freed up. So I certainly know that, I'm not commuting for 2 hours a day. So suddenly, and I'm not going to use that time to work more. So it's like, I think people have kind of been able to grow into those spaces and be creative, but also creativity is a fantastic distraction. So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling like out of control, that there's pressure in the world that you can't fix, or you can't control or manage, then what you can manage is how getting lost in something, getting lost in a book, getting lost in writing poetry, or reading, or creating painting. So I think that's been a positive from it. And we might see different ways of content being released. So I featured, we've got a summer programme running at the moment, and I featured an online music festival where everybody kind of shows up, and it's a very, started as a local thing, but then obviously people can digest that and drop in and appreciate it. So we might see more kind of guerrilla style sort of digestion of that content, and people kind of, and a bit like when YouTube started, everybody started to become the TV presenter.
Yes.
What's next for us is, that's very well established now, and it's kind of 10 years we've had people who have been building their own followings and their own channels, and developing that content. But out of this, there might be a whole new wave of content, and sort of empowering within that creativity that they can do it. So it could be good. I still think, and I still think that we're missing, when we get together face to face and physically, is we can't deny the power of that. So, and I think in an office environment, I keep calling it the art of happenstance. You happen upon a conversation or a nugget of information, or even just personal connections about someone's life. And we need to find that. And so so that can't be replaced really online, I don't think.
Helen, I guess, what do you, well, I suppose Helen and Claire, as these societal shifts take place in our behaviours, and do you feel that the areas need to be better supported and funded and researched to make us better at this? And if you do, have you got notions of where identifying those areas that would warrant some significant further research?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think we do need help adapting to this new remote working, or work from anywhere point of view. I see a lot of bonuses and benefits to it, and I like what you were saying, Claire. I think as festivals move online, I think how wonderful that people from anywhere can now access that festival. I think that's so powerful now. So from a cultural point of view, I think it opens up so many different avenues. And I think, definitely remote working with creative teams is going to be interesting moving forward, because this is probably going to be maintained for a while, or it might come in cycles. And having that creative dialogue remotely, where normally you brainstorm, and we normally put things all over the walls, and it's very tactile, and we play games together to research mechanics and things like that. Well, we can't really do that as easily now. So certainly I think there's going to be new paradigms about how you create together but apart. So it's going to be interesting.
And do you think there's priorities, like obviously you're already working with the NHS, and that's, I'm assuming, kind of centrally funded, or is that like at a trust level, like an NHS trust level? you know, so it's almost, it's like how we use this as a springboard for best practice across the sectors that most need it. So I don't know whether there's any kind of...
Yeah. I mean, within the NHS, there are innovation bodies, academic health science networks that drive the innovation. So that's who we're working with directly. And they have a remit to share innovation throughout their network.
Yeah.
That's why they exist. And yeah, absolutely. As we're all finding our way through, you know, if we can share it and learn from what each other is doing, because we're all learning at this point in time as to how best to do it. There's some further along than others, but sorry, I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Oh, just that there's certainly a significant period of learning. You know, the amount of learning that's taken place here across society is huge. You know, and it really is. It's a time where actually, if you're not learning and creating the new way forward, you've got to be. You have to be, because the old way has gone. And
absolutely, you know, we've had conversations over the last 10 weeks. And we've seen a real divide with businesses where some are just waiting for the old world to come back, and they're not willing to make any decisions until that happens. And then the others are preparing and thinking, trying to almost COVID-proof their businesses and their strategies in HR. And yeah, I do worry about people waiting for the old world to come back, because I do think this is a fundamental shift with how we work. And right at the start of the pandemic, there was a historian on the radio, and I don't remember who he was, but his words stuck with me, that he thinks that history will be remembered pre-COVID and post-COVID, and the ways that we work and live will be very different. And you know, I hope it's not as dramatic as that sounds, but I certainly think there has been a fundamental shift, certainly with remote working. I think now the majority of the population can work remotely. We can learn remotely. We can't ignore that going forward.
Yeah.
You know, I think, the genie's out of the bottle, so to speak.
What's your view on, like, from your clients that are COVID proofing their businesses? Are they thinking, you know, we might be in this sort of transition or recovery for 5 years, 10 years? Like, what's their sort of view on the future of work?
Yeah, we're certainly seeing a 3 to 5 year projection now, and strategies being put in place. Some businesses have taken the decision to move everything online, which is quite a big step. But I do believe the face-to-face element is still very important. I think there's some things you find it difficult to replicate online, and one of the reasons why we're finding Zoom and Teams so tiring, if you're on it a lot, is you know, you've got to pay much more attention to body language, because you can only see a much smaller proportion of the person, and you lose eye contact because the camera is set higher than the screen. And so we don't have as many cues, and so that's why it's more tiring than a face-to-face meeting. And so, you know, for a coach, for example, for someone who spends their day coaching people, it's much harder for them to do it remotely. It's possible, you know, Teams and Zoom is great, but I think that magic happens when you get together. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when we guys spoke a couple of weeks ago, the announcement had just been made that schools were opening back up.
Yeah.
And we discussed it at the time. And I'm just nosy. I just want to know, who am I speaking to? Have your children gone back? Are they with you? How's it going? How's life at home with the kids?
Yeah. So we've kept Toby at home at the moment. We read through the scientific advice and saw that the likelihood of infection would be lower in a week or two. And so we made the decision to just keep him at home for just that little bit longer. And, you know, but at the same time, I recognise it's a completely personal decision for everybody, and there's no right answer, is there, really?
No, you've got to do what...
Yeah,
so she's in a very small school anyway. So the year 1 and reception is a merged class, so there's only 9 of them. So we took the view that was, you know, we'll try it. So she's gone back, and it's 5.5 weeks. So I'm kind of the view that we sort of open up gently, you know, and then close down for 7 weeks of the summer, and then in September open up again. So that's our view, and yeah, I think the school reassured us that they're doing everything that they possibly can. So it's one of those. But I think if there was 60 in her year group, and it would have been a different conversation.
Yeah, in Toby's year group there are 90.
That's
so
it.
It's such the transition from, you know, from finding our way forward. It kind of was more straightforward when we're all in lockdown, but that transition coming out, that's where the rub seems to happen, and it's just so it's so difficult to know, you know, what way forward is the right way forward, when to take it, when to make those decisions. So
that's right. Yeah,
just being nosy. That was all I was just.
Yeah. I think, you know, I think as long as the schools are flexible, and I'm very glad that we can carry on home working and then homeschooling, and you know, we're in a very fortunate position where we can do that. And I think, take it day by day, and we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Well, both, may I thank you both very much for sharing these insights. And for me, they're enormously useful. They help steer our educational programmes, our educational practice. And for our current students, they provide excellent insight for their research. And for the wider Warwick community, the insights are so valuable to hear. So thank you both very much. If anybody listening to this would like to hear more from Helen or from Claire, drop me a line, or I'm sure you can just go and have a wee Google and you'll find them soon enough. I'm on Warwick's website, and if you're watching this on YouTube, follow the link on the closing slide. This series is also available as a podcast. Just search Insights Over Lunch on your preferred listening platform. Helen, Claire, thank you very much, and bon appetit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.